Hi, everyone. Today, we'd like to present our findings from a study that investigates the effects of vowel and onset consonant lengthening on speech segmentation. We know that speech is continuous, and we listeners have to discover the boundaries between units such as words. This is known as speech segmentation. There has been much research exploring the strategies for achieving segmentation. One well-established finding is so-called final vowel lengthening effects. That is, if the vowel in the final position of a unit is lengthened, then listeners can segment out better from continuous speech streams. However, if a lengthened vowel occurs in the initial position, segmentation is not facilitated or even inhibited. But how about longer consonants? Can the duration of consonants also be a cue for segmenting speech? To answer this question, we focus on how segmentation is affected when consonants in the syllable onset position are lengthened. Syllable onset consonants are of particular interest because research on domain initial strengthening has suggested the possibility that their durations can be a segmentation cue. One domain initial strengthening effect is that onset consonant in the initial position of a higher level prosodic constituent tend to be longer than those in the initial position of a lower level constituent. This means that, for example, the voice stop, b, would have longer closure period and a greater negative voice onset time. Therefore, a relatively long onset consonant is potentially useful for locating the beginning of units. Precisely because it may be a cue to initial position, we may expect that the effect of lengthening onset consonants would be opposite to those of lengthening vowels. That is, segmentation would be facilitated when a longer onset consonant occurs in the initial position of a unit, but there's no facilitation or even inhibition when such a consonant appears in the final position. To test these expectations, we conducted an experiment using the artificial language learning task, which had provided much evidence for the final vowel lengthening effects. It had two goals. The first one was simply to see if the vowel lengthening effects reported in previous studies can be replicated. Second, and more importantly, we would like to examine if the effects of the lengthening onset consonants are indeed opposite to those of lengthening vowels, as we expected.
So now let me briefly describe what an artificial language learning experiment is. Such an experiment typically consists of two phases. The first one is a learning phase. Here, all subjects have to do is to listen to some long continuous speech streams, in which the words of an artificial language are concatenated together without pauses. The artificial language words are just some nonsense syllable sequences like ba di bu, and so subjects may hear something like ba di bu du le bi ga mu gi, and so on. The second phase is a two alternative false choice test, in which subjects hear two sequences and select the one that was a word of the artificial language. The higher their accuracy in the test is, the better their segmentation performance in the learning phase was. To address our questions, we created 5 different experimental conditions. The first one was a baseline condition called TP only, where TP stands for transitional probability. In this condition, no segments were lengthened, and the only segmentation cue was transitional probability. That is, two adjacent syllables within an artificial language word tended to occur together more frequently than two syllables across a word boundary. Another two conditions tested the vowel lengthening effects. It is expected that if we lengthen the final vowels, segmentation will be facilitated when compared with the TP-only condition. That is, the accuracy of the test phase in this final vowel lengthening condition will be higher than that in the TP-only condition. In contrast, lengthening initial vowels will lead to no facilitation or even inhibition. The last two conditions examine if lengthening onset consonants has the opposite effects. We hypothesize that the initial onset lengthening condition facilitates segmentation and it leads to higher accuracy than the TP-only one. But this is not the case for the final onset lengthening condition. Our artificial language consisted of 6 trisyllable CV words, as shown here. Their component syllables were recorded individually in the same carrier sentence. They were excised from the sentence and underwent a series of manipulations. We flattened their F0 contours, equalized their amplitude, and made each segment have the same duration. The manipulated syllables were combined to form the artificial language words for the TP-only condition. For the other 4 conditions, one consonant or vowel in each artificial language word was lengthened by 1.5 times, depending on their condition. So here are the waveforms of the same word, banume, in the 5 different conditions. Here the segments that were lengthened are shaded. Then, for each condition, we created 6 speech streams by concatenating the 6 artificial language words without placing pauses in between. Each stream had 20 repetitions of each word. The repetitions occur randomly, but under the constraint that the same word could not occur in a row. The total duration for the speech streams was about 10 to 12 minutes. So, in the learning phase of our experiment, subject just had to listen to the 6 speech streams. Next, in the test phase, they heard an artificial language word and also a power in each trial. The power was a trisyllable sequence that was not part of the artificial language. It was created by combining substreams of 2 artificial language words. So, for example, the power bogino came from nebogi and nogamu. Subject had to select the word of the artificial language. There were 6 powers, and pairing them with all the 6 artificial language words gave rise to totally 36 trials. 150 sequential bilingual speakers of Taiwan Mandarin and Taiwanese Southern participated. They were randomly and equally assigned to the 5 conditions. So here are the results of the experiment. We analyzed subjects' responses in the test using linear mixed effects logistic regression. And this is our model formula. The fixed effect of primary interest here is condition, in which the TP-only condition serves as the baseline. In addition, we included log transform reaction time and the ordinal number of trials to factor out some potential extraneous effects, such as the effects of practice or fatigue. The random effects included random intersects for subject, artificial language word, and the power. Okay, the most important finding of the analysis was that the condition predictor was significant. Specifically, it indicated that when compared with the baseline TP-only condition, the final vowel lengthening condition had a significantly better accuracy, while the initial vowel lengthening condition had a significantly worse accuracy. Furthermore, compared with TP-only, the accuracy of an initial onset lengthening condition was significantly higher, but the accuracy of the final onset lengthening condition was not better or worse.
So, Our experiment replicated previous findings on vowel lengthening. Lengthening final vowels indeed facilitates segmentation, but lengthening initial vowels does not. In fact, it even inhibits segmentation. The novel aspect of this study is that we further demonstrate that onset consonant lengthening has the opposite effects. Lengthening initial onset consonant facilitates segmentation, but lengthening final ones does not. This suggests that listeners may have developed a segmentation strategy whereby they perceive longer onset consonants as signaling initial positions. To gain better understanding of how this strategy is used, two issues can be investigated in the future. First, if initial onset lengthening and the final vowel lengthening co-occur, as shown here, do they lead to better segmentation than either cue alone? Redundant cues like this may have a synergistic or additive effect, or they may not, as found in some studies. The second question is whether using longer onsets to locate initial positions is a universal segmentation solution. Artificial language learning research has provided abundant evidence that listeners of various languages use longer vowels to discover final positions. Therefore, it may be of interest to conduct cross-linguistic artificial language learning experiment to see if the duration of an onset consonant is also universally useful. Here are the references, and this is the end of presentation. Thank you.